Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dev Diary. So, today's project was originally going to be a Let's Dev project, but plans change. And so instead of wasting the project, I figured why not showcase it on Dev Diary. And it's a return to the jigsaw puzzle idea that we tried last year in an attempt to see if we can improve on the efficiency of the original project's code. So before we get into things, if you enjoy the video, remember to leave a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes, and with that said, let's get to the code. Now, as always, our variables are pretty straightforward. The dimensions were going to be dynamic, but the potential of having to do math was enough to use static numbers instead. Anyway, on initiation of the game spawns a physical cursor object for collision purposes. A grid the size of our puzzle's dimensions is then generated, and then our pieces are generated. Each piece is given a random number which coincides with their position within the grid. Now, this is a pretty basic and bare bones project, so there's only a few functions. When the player left clicks, the code checks if the player is already holding a piece. And if the player is not holding anything and is hovered over a piece, that piece is then quote-unquote grabbed. This triggers a function where the piece's ID and number are recorded to an array and then deactivated. However, if the player is already holding a piece, this triggers the placement function. This function reactivates the target piece and moves it to the cursor's position. A margin check is then made, which is a function that returns whether the cursor is within the boundaries of the puzzle area. If it is, the piece is snapped to the nearest grid coordinates to its position. But if the cursor is off the puzzle area, the piece is simply placed where the cursor is at that moment. The grab variable is then reset to allow the process to repeat. And finally, a when check function exists to, well, determine when the player has successfully completed the puzzle. This is done by first making sure each piece is active in some form. Then if a piece is within the play area, it is snapped to the nearest grid position. And as long as each piece matches their grid cell's number, this is considered a win. In terms of drawing, the grid itself is comprised of a bunch of lines drawn to a surface. A message is displayed when the player wins, and the most important part are the drawing of the pieces. Using the draw sprite part function, each piece object uses their designated number to determine where within the overall image to draw from. The same is also then done in the cursor object, only this piece is displayed when the player has quote-unquote grabbed a piece. That array data that we store on the grab is used to then quickly determine which piece to draw. And that's about it. Again, a very simple project because again, it was meant to be a Let's Dev endeavor. But if you're curious why the pieces are deactivated and reactivated, it's entirely to do with the collision checks. If the piece still existed while being quote-unquote held, then we couldn't check for collisions under the piece without adding a bunch of conditionals. It was easier to simply deactivate the piece and draw a stand-in for the time being and allow the code to continue functioning as normal. Oh, and I also added a hard mode which switches out the sprite used in the puzzle. Overall, I think that this was an improvement code-wise on the original idea. Not only does it do away with the data structure usage, which likely helps performance, if, you know, that matters. And aside from the win check, which was done haphazardly, this seemed pretty efficient. There are a few areas where things could have been tightened up, but still, it was a fun way to learn and grow from previous endeavors. Now that gamemaker has given arrays so much more power, I'm legitimately trying to stop using data structures. And this was a good way to exercise that mindset. Though I should stress that there's nothing wrong with using data structures. gamemaker provides them for a reason. It's just a personal preference. So if data structures still work for you, keep using them to your heart's content. Anyway, that'll about do it for today's impromptu dev diary, so let me know how you've approached similar concepts in your own works, or even share how you think that this could be further improved. Anything on your mind, leave it in the comments. Also, if you would like to support the continued creation of these videos, consider subscribing to my Patreon. And with that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.